بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين إنه خير ناصر ومعين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين واللعن على أعدائهم أجمعين. Salaam alaikum. Let us start with the dua for the safety of Imam Zaman alayhi salam. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كل وليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajum. So today I will do the hadith today. So as I told you last week that I intend to do a hadith every week as much as I can do a hadith at the beginning, and then we go on with the rest of the tafsir. So it gives us an extra something to do, right? So today's hadith is about Surah Baqarah. So I'll do that, and I'll go back to the last week's lecture because there was one point which I wanted to mention, which I did not mention. I just wanted to add to that. So there's a hadith of the Holy Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. He says, "Man qara'a," okay, whoever recites, "Man qara'a," whoever recites, "arba'a ayatin min awwal al-Baqarah," recites first four ayats of Surah Baqarah. Okay, I'm reading the Arabic and I'm putting the English at the same time. من قرأ أربع آيات من أول البقرة وآية الكرسي. آية الكرسي here is singular, آية, not with a big ta. You can see that ayah, the Arabic, وآية الكرسي, the small ta. That means only one ayat is that, and that is verse number 255. Okay, وآية الكرسي وآتيني بعدها, and two ayats after that, the two ayat after that, number 256 and 257. This is an interesting point here, because sometimes in the Mafati, for example, or wherever in du'as, you are told to recite Ayatul Kursi. You have to pay attention. Is it say ayah or ayat? Right? If it's ayat, you have to say all three. If it's ayah, means one. Right? Mafahim class, you will be aware of what I'm talking about. Sister, are you in Mafahim class? No. Fine. Sawa. And then it says, وَثَلَاث آيَات مِنْ آخِرِهَا. Three ayat at the end of the surah, Surah Baqarah, 3 ayat. Whoever does this, right? Lam yara fi nafsihi wa malihi shay'an yakrahu. He will not find anything within himself or in his property that he would dislike. That means he would be a good person in his heart, and also in his property he would have a lot of barakah and no like defects like that. Okay? Wala yaqrabuhu shaitan, and shaitan will not come near him. This is for a person who recites these particular ayats of the Quran. Wala yansa al-Quran, and he will not forget the Quran. So if he recites and he remembers something, right, because he wants to practice on it, right? So if he recites, he will not forget. Why he will not? Because he is reciting these particular parts of the surah. So this is a very powerful surah. Surah Baqarah is one of the most powerful surahs of the Holy Quran. This is an al-Kafi from the Holy Messenger. And there's a condition to it. So these are the things that will happen to him if he recites this thing. Right? These are the things that will happen to him. So Baijan is going to tell us that what is the condition for this. There's a condition. Everybody is not going to get this thing. There's a condition applied to it. Condition applies. Baijan, from last week. That's why I'm asking, because last week maybe tamaru ilm wadaresh.
One of the conditions is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us a strategy. The strategy is like that, inna fi dhalika la ayati liqawmin yatafakkarun, inna fi dhalika la ayati liqawmin ya'qilun. So that once you have pondered, you reflect, you contemplate, and then you understand, then you bring the belief. Once you bring the belief, then you see the result of it.
So person who ponders, what is the result of that pondering?
he will gain Maarifah.
Then what will he have to do?
Once he gets Maarifah, he will get more confident.
Okay,
He will
then
have
what?
more belief,
Then
more
what?
strong and firm belief.
There's one thing that's missing. Sister, can you?
Yes, sir. Action.
Yes.
Action. Yes.
This is the so reading. It's not enough. One has to start applying that. And therefore, with conditions, I have put here. The condition is
Action.
right that if you want to apply, if you want to have these things happen to you, that shaitan doesn't come near you, your wealth is protected, you are protected, and also that you don't forget the Quran. You recite the Quran. It says ponder over the Quran, but also the issue of action is important. That means you must work to do what the Quran is telling you to do. So today's ayat is actually the one that we are going to do is actually a hukm, a fiqh rule is actually can be extracted from today's ayat, which is ayat number 221 of Surah Baqarah. But before we go to that, let me just go to the last week's ayat, which was 3872. Right. In 3872, we are talking of the creation of Hazrat Adam alayhi salam. Right, don't read the bottom part. So the angels are commanded to prostrate to Hazrat Adam alayhi salam, right? So Allah is saying to the angels that I'm going to make a human being in proper proportions, right? And then I'm going to breathe into him, right? And then you do sajda to him. That is the ayah itself. In the next ayah, right, 73, right? Number 72, it says, do sajda when I breathe in my soul into his body, right? In number 73, all the angels do sajda. So as we discussed this last week, that there is something that is missing in the middle, that there is this, you have to do this, and then they start doing it. But when does Allah actually when does Allah do that action of breathing into the soul? When does he actually make that particular human being? This does not mention. Number 72 is telling that I'm going to do it. Number 73 is the angels doing something. So in the middle there is something that is missing. So I found an ayah in that which is actually referring to this middle part. So I wanted to bring to your attention that was the missing thing that I put in this time. Surah Sajda, chapter number 32, verse number 9. Then he proportioned him, that means إِذَا سَوَيْتُهُ, to make a human being in proper proportions, like a balanced, right? So haath hoye, so ek baju khali haath na hoye, be baju haath hoye, be aankh, everything balanced properly, right? And in order, so everything is synchronized, okay? And breathed into him of his spirit. Verse number 72 is saying, I'm going to do. This other verse somewhere else is telling us he actually did it. And then number 73 comes in, then the angels did sajda to him. So I just wanted to bring to your attention this particular part of the series of actions that is. So don't expect the Quran in one surah to tell you in one go everything from A to Z. You have to bring in other ayats of the Quran, and this is a lesson for us. That don't ever make a conclusion, a final conclusion based on one ayat. You must bring in from other ayats. Inshallah, for the ayat that we are going to do, we will also look at it from that angle. That one ayat by itself doesn't have that ability to tell us do this or don't do that. You have to bring in other ayats just to make sure, to be on the safe side. Okay? So, any questions? This is the Surah Baqarah, verse number 221. Now, the way I have put it here is the way, if you were to look at the physical Quran with translation of Al-Quli Qarai, then this is how he would put it. He would break down the ayah and put its translation bit by bit so that you would know that this part of the verse, what does it mean? This part of the verse, what does it mean? Because some other translators, they would put the whole ayah in Arabic, and then they would put the whole translation in another part, and you would not know which part of the ayah is referring to which part. So this one actually helps you. So if you're doing mafahim, then you will enjoy this type of translation. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. وَلَا تَنْكِحُ الْمُشْرِكَاتِ حَتَّى يُؤْمِنْ. Do not marry idolatresses until they embrace faith. This is this part of the ayah. Next part. وَلَا أَمَةٌ مُؤْمِنَةٌ خَيْرٌ مِّن مُشْرِكَةٍ وَلَوْ أَعْجَبَتْكُمْ. A faithful slave girl is better than an idolatress, though she should impress you. Right? وَلَا تُنْكِحُ الْمُشْرِكِينَ حَتَّى يُؤْمِنُوا. And do not marry your daughters to idolaters until they embrace faith. وَلَا عَبْدٌ مُؤْمِنٌ خَيْرٌ مِّن مُشْرِكٍ وَلَوْ أَعْجَبَكُمْ. And a faithful slave is better than an idolater, though he should impress you. This is the first part. And then the second part here. أُولَٰئِكَ يَدْعُونَ إِلَى النَّارِ. Those invite others to the fire. وَاللَّهُ يَدْعُو إِلَى الْجَنَّةِ وَالْمَغْفِرَةِ بِإِذْنِهِ. But Allah invites to paradise and pardon by His will. وَيُبَيِّنُ آيَاتِهِ لِلنَّاسِ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَذَكَّرُونَ. And He clarifies His signs for the people so that they may take admonition. This is the whole verse. It's a long verse. Inshallah, we'll go through it bit by bit. Right. As an introduction, this surah was revealed in Medina. Right? I always mention that. Madani or Makkah. You have always mentioned that, right? Qasim bhai, you know the reason why I do that? Before we come to Shan Nuzul, if a surah is revealed in Medina or Makkah, what difference does it make?
Makkah for disbelievers.
Okay.
But in Medina also there are disbelievers.
So Makkah is for disbelievers and Medina also disbelievers.
Yes.
And who else? Medina.
Idolaters also.
Idolaters in Medina. Medina you had Jews
No Jews, yes.
and you had the Muslims, right? So if a surah is made in Medina, revealed in Medina, you'd say that the audience of Allah, of the Prophet, is the Muslims primarily, right? And in certain cases to the Jews, and it's only certain cases to the mushrikeen. The primary subject and audience in the Madani surahs is the Muslims, because the Muslims are the majority, and a lot of the verses relating to the masail, the fiqh masail, come in the Madani verses, right? Because the audience is Muslims, and now they need to be told what to do and what not to do, right? And Makkah is not like that. Makkah, the problem was with the mushrikeen. They could not believe in Tawheed, and they could not believe in Qiyamah. So they would constantly be told. And if you go to the small surahs of the Quran, most of them are what? Makki surahs. That means their audience is the polytheists, the mushrikeen, right? And they're constantly being told that believe in Allah, the One, and Qiyamah. That is the main sort of theme on these two types of verses. 87th surah to be revealed. Remember that the way we look at the Quran, Surah Baqarah is number 2, but in terms of revelation, it is the 87th. So in the time frame, you can say it was the 87th surah. So 114 surahs were revealed, then 87th is Surah Baqarah. So Surah Baqarah came late. In fact, one of the Mufassirin said that it was the first surah to be revealed in Medina. Of course, that doesn't mean that all of it came one after the other for the surah to finish and then the next surah came. Sometimes another surah would come in, and then another part of Surah Baqarah would come in, and then it would finish like that. But it was started revealing at the beginning when the Prophet went to Medina. Sawa? So what's the content? It's about Tawheed and Qiyamat, okay? For both the Muslims and the Jews also. It's talking about the Jews and the hypocrites. A lot of hypocrites there, by the way, in Medina. Hypocrites are Muslims by words and maybe actions, but in the heart they are zero. આપણું શું છે ઓપોઝિટ છે, આપણે અંદર બિલીફ કરીએ છીએ પણ બારે એક્શન્સમાં ઓછા છે આપણે, right? I don't know what you would call that. What would you call that, Bhajan? What do you call that? The word for that is fasiq. We'll come to that. Fasiq is a person who believes, but he is a bit shortcoming. He doesn't do his action. Fasiq is a person who commits sins. He's still considered a believer, but he commits sins sometimes. And fajr. Yes. So the surah is talking about the Quran itself, and the stories about the great prophets like Hazrat Ibrahim and Hazrat Musa alayhi salam, and Islamic rules are also there in Surah Baqarah. Like this verse that we are doing today is talking about an Islamic rule. Qasim bhai is nodding, but he knows everything, huh? Yep. Is there a sabab al-nuzul. Baijan, is there? There is. Would you like to tell us what the sabab al-nuzul that you have got? What is there a story behind it?
Here, through the topic of enlightenment, I got that the story of Maarifah in Makkah, who was a converted Muslim,
Yes.
and he wanted to marry a disbeliever called Anak.
Yes.
So it was related that Islam has considered a number of conditions for the wife that a man wants to select. So these conditions are identified in Islam because this religion takes the matrimonial life.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Important for the sake of the assured heritable effects upon the offspring.
Okay, what actually happened? This Martha and this lady, what happened? What was the incident that led to the revelation of the verse? Sabab al-nuzul means the cause of the revelation of the ayah. Why was the ayah revealed? Why did Allah send this ayah? So something happened, and then the ayah was revealed. What happened? So you mentioned that half of the story. Like, do you have the full story there? You don't have it. Sawa. Baijan, you want to relate to us? I want to see.
Yeah, it's about Martha.
I am going to put it, but I want to make sure that you have the full account.
It's about this Martha who had converted to Islam. And he had gone to Prophet ﷺ saying that I had a relation pre-Islamic time with this lady, and she's now inviting me.
Yes.
So I said I cannot do anything. Not I can marry you until I have to go and ask the Prophet.
Right.
So he goes to the Prophet and he says, then this particular ayah was revealed that they may invite you
Yes.
towards something and they may impress you, but now they are inviting you towards the hell, while Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the believers.
Yeah, so the ayah is revealed over there. The question is that where did he meet her?
I think so. There was like Prophet had sent him
Uh-huh.
back to Makkah. I think so.
Uh-huh.
And when he went there,
What did he send him for?
as a deputy.
As to do what? Okay, that is what I wanted to point out to you. So when he went there, he met her, right? And that's when they talked. Okay, so this is the story is there. The same thing that you mentioned is there. Just one point here is that this is in square brackets I put here. He was sent by the Holy Prophet to go to Makkah and bring back some of the Muslims who were there. So he had a job to do. That means to go and collect the Muslims and bring them with him, because he was a brave person, right? So this is what he did. And then he wanted to, when he was leaving, he met her and she wanted to do a sinful act. He said, no, I can't do it, right? And he invited and she invited him to get married to her, and she said, oh, I can't do it, as he said, until I get the Prophet's permission. And the Prophet, that's when the verse was revealed that no, you cannot marry an idolatress, full stop. So that is the asbab al-nuzul, or sabab al-nuzul, or shan al-nuzul, what do you call it? The purpose because of which the ayah was revealed. Interestingly, there is a second sabab al-nuzul. This is mentioned in Al-Mizan, right? So let me just put it and then we can read it together. In the book Durul Manthur of Suyuti, who is a Sunni scholar, this ayah has been revealed about somebody called Abdullah bin Rawahi, who had a black lady servant. Okay, one day he got angry at her and kicked her. When his anger died down, he goes to the Holy Messenger and tells him what had happened. So the Holy Messenger asked him that, how do you see this servant, and how is this servant, how is she as a person? So he says to the Prophet, she fasts, she prays, she does wudu in the best possible manner, and believes in Tawheed and your messengership. So the Holy Prophet tells this man, Abdullah, that, oh Abdullah, your servant is a believer. So he was very happy to hear that she's actually a believer. And therefore, what he said, that since you say she is a believer, then I'm going to free her. And then he frees her and he marries her. When he does that, the people get upset with him. Remember, the people of the time saying that these people, they got upset with him. They said, you married your servant? How can you do that? Even in our society, would you marry your servant, for example, even if she's free? Come on. Like it's so much, such a bad thing to do in our society. In their society, likewise. These people like to get married to, they were ready to get married to mushrik men or women who had good social status and looks. Right? So Allah, this is when He sent down this verse, that a faithful slave girl is better than an idolatress, even though she should impress you, even though the idolater impresses you. But no, what you think in society, your culture that you're looking at, is a wrong culture. The correct culture is to marry somebody who is a mu'mina. Okay, so this is the second sabab nuzul, and this is an interesting. This sabab nuzul is interesting because it tells us what the condition was at the time of the Prophet. That people did not like the idea of marrying a slave girl or a slave boy. They loved to get married to, they were ready to get married to mushrik women and men. Okay, so this is Al-Mizan, who is quoting from this particular book, Durrul Manthur of Suyuti, who is a Sunni scholar. Sawa. Let's go into terminologies. That means we break down the ayat and focus on some of the words which are important. Okay, so the first word we look at is nikah. Okay, nikah. Now, the word nikah and the verse says tankihu, la tankihu. Right? Tankihu is from the letters nakaha, nun, kaf, ha. Okay? And the root word nikah means, in the Arabic language, means matrimony, wedlock, or marriage, according to the enlightening commentaries. Something is there in your commentary, it should be there. The meaning of nikah is there. Sawa. Right, what I want to do here at this stage is that I think Allama Tabatabai, he differentiates between the two words in the verse. There are two words in the verse. Just bring that up. You see here it says wala tankihu, and here it says wala tunkihu. See, these two words which both have nakaha in them, right? Both are looking very similar, but they have a big difference between the two. Allama is pointing to the difference. Tankihu, tunkihu. Okay, remember that. Sawa. I'm going back to the original slide. Tankihu and tunkihu. La tankihu is talking to the men, the Muslim men. O Muslim men, la tankihu, do not get married to the idolaters. Do not marry idolatresses. Okay? So you understand that much? No problem. In the case of la tunkihu with a dhamma, this is tankihu with a fatha, tunkihu is with dhamma. He says, "O you men, don't marry your daughters to idolaters." The la tunkihu here is talking to not women. In the first case, it is talking to men. Don't marry idolaters. Don't marry you men, you Muslim believing men. Don't marry idolatresses. In la tunkihu